You're listening to the Silver Stoner Show.
Hey dudes, dudettes, trans dudes, and everybody in between. It is I, Uncle Herb, and this is another episode of the Silver Stoner. Stay tuned because a little bit later on in the show, we're going to talk about growing our own weed at home, bypassing things like excise taxes, sales taxes, dispensaries, and everything else. Because the truth is, if you know what you're doing, and that's the big if, it's a better way to do it. And having said that, I have on an expert master grower, Dyron Lindsay of Barracuda Cannabis, who I met at a cannabis show recently and knows his stuff. So we're going to get to him in just a couple of minutes. But in the meantime, as always, let's begin with the 5 tenets of being a stoner, remembering that what we are trying to do here is not encourage you to smoke weed, but instead to form a community of the open and the creative. You can be a stoner and not smoke weed at all, although it's a lot easier when you do, to be perfectly honest, but whatever makes your life happy. And in that spirit, I have 5 tenets that I've laid down that all of us should follow, which is, the first is you own your own body. No matter what you want to put in your body, no matter what anybody tells you is good or bad for you, it's really up to you. It's your body. Do with it what you will. Your property is your own is the second tenet. So if you own it, Dyron and I are going to talk about both of our experiences, for example, ending up on the wrong side of the law, straight because it was arbitrary, especially in his case. Not so much in my case, but in his case. And we'll talk more about that. But the truth is, he was using his property his way. And anytime you own property, it should be yours and yours alone to choose whether or what you do with it. You know, it's just your business. Third is, the most important thing to remember in life is that 999 times out of 1,000, the best thing to do about anything is nothing. And one of the great things about weed is it gives you the ability to take a chill pill and relax. And you know when you get that anxiety feeling, you think you need to do something about something, just remember there's a butterfly effect to everything that you do. And if you act particularly when you're feeling, anxiety or haste or anything else, it's just going to always end up badly. So really, most of the time, what you ought to do, and to be a stoner, is take a hit, relax, sit back, and don't do anything at all. The natural flow of things will work it all out. Further, as we go on to the fourth thing, your fight is not my fight. So please, what we as stoners do is we don't try to enlist people in all of our issues, whether it's things in our personal life like going through a divorce. I mean, there's nothing more tiring than listening to one side of a split from men or women. There's not even 2 sides. There's like 100 sides. Don't enroll everybody in your fight. Your fight is not my fight. My fight is not your fight. We should just, again, hit the weed, relax a little bit, and not get so wrapped up in having to go to battle over every little thing. You got to learn what hill to die on, and very rarely is there a hill to die on. Most of the time, the best thing to do is just walk away. It's not cowardly to be smart, okay? And smart is where it's going to be. And finally, what is my 5th tenet, Tech Master E? I just had a brain fart. Yeah, I know, and I just forgot my own 5th tenet because, this is what happens when you're a boomer. Nobody can control. I wish somebody could control my thoughts or emotions because I'm obviously having the early onset of Alzheimer's. This is what I love about doing a live-ish, taping of the show. I dig it, man. Anyway. Be a stoner, be chill, relax. Let's go on and talk about Silver Stoner News. Now, I made a decision, and I have changed the course of Silver Stoner News a little bit. We're only going to do happy news here. We're only going to do happy stoner news because you know what? There are plenty of other places to get yourself worked up over shit that's going to be over tomorrow and you can just forget about. 999 times, I think, most of the issues that we face daily in politics and all this other crap, none of them are existential, which is a fancy word for saying it's not going to kill you, right? Most of these things are going to come in, no matter how it turns out, whether it goes your way or another way, none of it's going to, the sun's going to shine, it's going to rise in the morning, set in the evening, you live in America, the most prosperous nation in the history of the planet. Or maybe you're watching me in Western Europe, or maybe you're watching me in Asia, but English speakers everywhere. You're living in a blessed time. We all live better than Louis XIV, if you think about it. We have indoor plumbing, and we have safe food supply, and even if you're poor, you have a flat screen TV. I mean, it's not such a bad life. So, relax. take a moment and let's talk about some happy news. This is going to be your out. You want angry news? Go to MSNBC or Fox, depending on where, you got plenty of that shit. So we're just going to pass by that and get on to stoner news, starting with, and when I wrote this morning, I said, yay for boomers. Phil Mickelson wins the PGA at 50. He's really not a boomer. He's 50 years old. What is a boomer? I mean, I know what a boomer is. But I'm at the tail end of boomers, actually. What is a 50-year-old? He's not a millennial. What is he? He was born in 72. Gen Z are the young guys now. Do you have any idea, Dyron, what he would be at 50 years old? I don't know what the fuck he is. I'll say what he is. He's got, I think he's dyeing him, but he's got gray hairs. You kind of tell, So anyway, having said that, God bless you, Phil Mickelson. By the way, I can hit a ball as far as Phil Mickelson. I just have no fucking idea where it's going. And that is the big difference between, hitting it long. Phil Mickelson, anyway, I don't want to go into golf, but it's such a boomer game anyway. But, or not really, I guess. Not since Tiger. Anyway, fuck that. Anyway, let's move on. I said anyway. How many times can I say anyway in one sentence? 4 times in one sentence. You got to stop me from that shit, that Master E. Okay, you got to stop me from being, redundant. Okay, here's a story that will warm the heart of all of us, and tell me if you share my opinion. Hello Underwear is making new underwear that's killing Victoria's Secret. The headline I saw was, Hello Underwear that makes women comfy. And, and you see the images, up on the screen now. You know what? I think all women's underwear is sexy. I mean, I yay for Hello Underwear, but, you know how you can't dress up a pig, but if you have an attractive woman and she comes out in her underwear, do you give a shit what the underwear looks like? Women in underwear. And do you agree with me that covering it up is more sexy than putting it out in the open? I mean, I do. So, this underwear to me is, yeah, great. Be comfy. I'm glad. It's for women of all different sizes and shapes, and this is all great. And it's the wonderful thing about living in a country that has a free market economy is that you have choices of underwear. If you feel like slinky, go to Victoria's Secret. If you feel like comfortable, you go to Hello Underwear and others. But if we lived in an authoritarian system, there'd be one kind of underwear, one kind of beer, one kind of shoes. It's kind of like, if you don't believe me, look at what China was like when they were still communists under Chairman Mao and they all wore the suit, right? Oh, get away from the politics. Fuck that. Anyway, we live in a wonderful free country. Yay. Forget that I ever said anything about only one selection. Fuck that. Okay. Guys, I've been recommending cryptocurrency on prior podcasts over and over again. I still recommend it, but at this very moment, over this last weekend, it has taken a gigantic dump. Bitcoin is down nearly 50% and all the other cryptos with it. And this is where you have to grow cojones of iron. Those of you who don't understand what the word cojones means, I'm not telling you. Because that's not a family show, we disclaim it. It means balls. Anyway, having said that, you want to buy low and sell high. So you want to look at 2 things. Number 1 is, why is crypto dropping? It's dropping right now because China is trying to police it out of existence in China. Now, at first, this is one of those things when you first hear the news, you think it's bad, and then if you think about it, it's actually great. Because the only reason the Chinese are going after crypto is because the Chinese are using crypto. There's 1.5 billion Chinese, and they live in a country where there's a heavy tax structure, and they're using it to get around it, let's be honest. And that means, no government is smart enough to stop millions and billions of individuals doing something at the personal level. And so in the end, this is going to expand crypto, not restrict it. Now, in this particular piece that I'm talking about today, Mark Cuban is saying exactly the same thing. And I bring him up because who the fuck am I? But Mark Cuban, a self-made billionaire, the owner of the Dallas Mavs, if you don't know who he is. He's on that Shark Tank show. I've actually never watched Shark Tank. Is that good reality TV? Good. Is it good? You guys like it? Yeah. All right, cool. But I respect his opinion, and I only bring him up to just maybe to corroborate what I'm saying. Now, he, by the way, is a huge fan of Ethereum, and Ethereum 2.0 is coming out. And the thing about Ethereum 2.0 that makes it better than Bitcoin, in Mark Cuban's thoughts, and I think it might be true, I'm going to have to read more about it before I weigh in. I don't like to just talk about shit I'm not sure of, is that they're going to make it in such a way it'll be easier to use it to spend, basically. The biggest problem with Bitcoin, for example, is that if it goes, when it was, today it's at 34,000 when I walked into the studio, and it was last week at 62,000. And by the way, it's dropped 80% of the time before. This is nothing new for Bitcoin. This is Bitcoin on sale. This is Ethereum on sale. Imagine that you walked into, a department store. So let's say Nordstrom's, and I'm only picking Nordstrom's because I live in Phoenix and there's Nordstrom's here. It's a Western department store chain if you're not familiar with it. And you saw this men's suit. Let's say you were a guy like me, or women's dress, whatever it is. And you've gone in and every time you've walked by it in the store, you've said to yourself, I'd really like that, but not for $1,000. That's just a beautiful, beautiful suit, and I'd look great in it, but not for. But then one day you walk in the store, and that suit's on sale for 75% off. Suddenly it's $250, and now you would instantly buy that suit. Why? Because you perceive that you just got a $1,000 item for $250. Now the truth is, you got about $10 worth of cloth and a lady sitting in a factory in China that sewed that together. But the fact of the matter is, your perception is you got this high quality item for 75% less. Why don't we do this in our investing? And this is where you got to really, cryptocurrency is the currency of the future. You can believe me on this. You can believe Mark Cuban on this. Okay. It's real. Suddenly we're at this beginning stage of it, the very beginning of crypto. This is the Stone Age of cryptocurrency. It's going to replace all currencies in the end. And suddenly it's on sale again. Wouldn't you want to buy that $1,000 suit on sale, right? So that's what I want you to think about with crypto, and that's what Mark Cuban's saying, and on to the next story. That's enough about that. All right. Let's move on. Girl Scouts deliver with drones. Now, the Girl Scouts are catching up to something that I knew when I was a guest of the state of Arizona 2 years ago. I have mentioned in the past that the cartel was using drones to drop narcotics onto the prison yard at Kingman, Arizona, where I was. And one of the CEOs, who shall go nameless because I'm not a rat, would pick it up and give it to the paisas, who are the foreign nationals who control the distribution, particularly of Mexican black tar heroin, on the yard. And it was distributed. But the Girl Scouts have gotten a lot smarter, and they're using it to deliver cookies. God bless them. Now, this is the proper use of drone technology. So these girls and Google got together because they were having a hard time trying to figure out how to deliver their cookies in the time of COVID, because you don't want a lot of these cookies. For example, my personal favorites, I'm just going to throw it out here. I'm a Thin Mint guy. Okay, how about you guys? Are you Thin Mint? You like the peanut butter? Yeah, they're delicious too.
Chocolate. It's like covered in chocolate.
What do they call those peanut butter ones? That has a name too. Turtles or something? No, Turtles is the peanut butter chocolate caramel candy. I don't know what, but you know what they have a cute name for it like that.
It's the red box. I know it's a red box.
The thing is, the shit melts. Okay?
Absolutely right.
So the problem is, has been, in the time of COVID, you can't do a knockless delivery, right? And I don't know about you guys with your Thin Mints, but I'm a freezer of the Thin Mints.
Yes.
I also freeze, by the way, weed edibles. Like the weed peppermint patties you can get that are like York peppermint patties, absolutely delicious frozen. Just throwing it out there. But anyway, the Girl Scouts, Google has this new app called Wing. Are you guys familiar with Wing? Wing controls a drone. It might be in testing, but they're doing it with girls, and the idea here is to show them how drones work, and hopefully inspire the girls to pursue STEM. STEM, by the way, is the acronym for science, technology, engineering, and math. Okay, and encouraging girls, which I am all for. I mean, I'm the father of 2 girls and 2 boys, and I'm all for it. STEM is definitely going to be, but not the only. By the way, not the only. If you have a child who's creative, don't force them into STEM. Let them become artists. I mean, a child has to be who they are. But it's great to let girls know that they're not shut off from the STEM careers. And Google's promoting this, and that's what this is about: delivering Girl Scout cookies by drone with this Wing. This is with all the bad stuff you hear about Google and all the, and then the Scouts and, all the stuff, it's nice. It's nice when things are going the right way and teaching the right thing and doing the right thing, and good for you all. Now, it's May. I should have done this to begin with. From now on, I'm going to do this on the first day of every month. I'm going to read your horoscope. Now, I'm a Taurus because it's May. Now, as a stoner, I have an open mind. I have to be honest, personally, as I talked about in an earlier episode, you never want to be a cynic, you want to be a skeptic. And my skeptic way of thinking is, I don't know that astrology is true, but I don't think it's important. My ex-wife is an astrologer, a very serious astrologer, and we just agree to disagree. This is the great part about being a stoner. But I'm open to the message because, let me read you May's message and you'll understand what I mean. As you enter a phase when gradual incremental progress is the best progress possible, I offer you the concluding lines of Taurus poet Adrian Rich's poem, From a Survivor. Quote, not as a leap, but a succession of brief, amazing movements, each one making possible the next. That's close quote. I especially want you to call your attention to the fact that the small steps can be brief, amazing moments. Don't underestimate the power of minor, subtle, regular breakthroughs. Now look, whether that advice comes as the result of the alignment of the stars or it's just plain old advice, it's good advice, right? Basically what he's saying is your horoscope for May is take pleasure in the small victories, right? Because the big ones are few and far between, and the little ones are a lot more, and a lot of times we don't take the time to enjoy the small victories, you know? Those of us who are parents do a lot of times, but sometimes we don't. Sometimes we get so wrapped up on our own stuff. So the May horoscope really fits everybody. Take a little time to enjoy the small victories. That's really what life is about. And don't wait, and when you fail, it just makes you appreciate the next victory more, doesn't it, really? If you never failed, could you ever be happy? Kind of remind, in the old days, being a boomer, are you guys familiar with the original Twilight Zone television show? Tech Mastery, were you a watcher of the black and white Twilight Zone back in the day? No.
I was.
You were? Okay. And by the way, on Paramount Plus, I think they have the entire series for you to rewatch it. And these shows are great, but my very favorite one, and they stand up to the test of time, not because, yes, the special effects are cheesy and the monsters are cheesy, like the one with William Shatner with the guy on the wing and it's cheesy, but the message holds up, okay? They were deep. Rod Serling was a great writer he was a writer first and a television personality second, which nowadays we don't have anybody left like that. There was a writer first and a television personality second. But he had this one great episode, and it was the episode, there was this criminal, and I'm not changing the subject at all. There was this criminal who died. He got shot by the police running down an alley, and he wakes up on the other side, right? He wakes up in the afterlife, and he's greeted by the actor who played Mr. French in Family Affair. He was a British actor named Sebastian Cabot. You have to be a boomer to remember him, but he was a kind of a heavyset guy with a beard like I have, but it wasn't gray, and he was very jolly and very British, and spoke like, "Hello, wonderful to see you. I say hello," that kind of thing, and just the perfect guy to play a butler, really. So he greets him, and he plays the guy welcoming this criminal to the afterlife, and his name is Pip, and he says to the criminal, he says, "Welcome to the afterlife, and this is and he shows him this beautiful apartment by the standards of when it was made in 1959, full of all the modern conveniences of a telephone and things now that seem silly, and women and gambling. Anyway, the bottom line is everything this guy wanted, all he had to do was pick up the phone and call Pip, and he got anything he wanted. And for a while, he had a great time. And then he started getting bored. And he tried to lose at gambling, and he couldn't lose. He tried to make the women hate him, and he could. Frankly, in this particular show, at one point he slaps the women, which is a very 1950s thing that we would not do in modern times. But even slapping them, he couldn't make them go away, okay? And in the end, he calls up Pip again, and he says, "Look, Pip," he says, "I think I'm in the wrong place." He said, "I was a criminal and a murderer and a thief. And, I get everything I want. I think I'd need to be in the other place, the place where, guys like me go because this is all too good." And with this, Pip laughs, one of those horror movie laughs. And he says, "You are in the other place." And the moral to that story is, if you get everything you want, it's hell, right? And so, enjoy the failures as much as the successes because they make you without the failures, how could you ever enjoy a success, right? Okay, enough of that. Let's move on. The DEA, which I don't have any great love for, has decided that it's going to allow medical cannabis research nationally, and they're doing this to settle a bunch of lawsuits. Okay, they just got their rear end sued off by companies between Los Angeles and New York City and everywhere in between, dozens of lawsuits where the DEA was trying to shut down state legal grow operations. And this is the conflict between state legal and federal legal. And guys, just because weed is legal in your state, the DEA is still after you. They're looking for reasons to put you down. They're looking for excuses. The DEA is a bureaucracy. Okay, in this case, it's a bureaucracy with guns. And all bureaucracies exist for one reason only, and that is to grow themselves and increase their power. They are not to serve you, okay? And you all know that from going to the Department of Motor Vehicles. I mean, anyone who enjoys that, I guess you would think I'm wrong about this, but most of us who are stoners know that these people are not your friend. So anyway, watch out for the DEA. Moving on, and the DEA, I have another story about that later. I'll come back to it. Let's talk about another good story. Man lays down with autistic boy. Now, this is a really interesting story. This took place in England. And I'm just going to read it to you because I just like to be reminded there's still lots of great people. You can't turn on the news without the story of someone shooting someone or beating someone up or calling each other. And, right now, there's, this big story is because of what's going on in the Middle East, all the anti-Semitism. Let's just get away from all that and talk about a nice story. There are still lots of great people out there. The promenade at Southend-on-Sea is a popular strolling spot in Essex, England. And I'm reading this to you because my memory's not good enough to remember it. Knowing she and Rudy, this is her son, who is autistic, were drawing attention and that her son's outburst might go on for an hour. This is the little boy. If you've been around, this is not a boy who has Asperger's syndrome. This was a boy who has severe autism. And he was going through an episode on this walk on the beach in Essex, England. She soon found herself subjected to the reproachful stares and comments of passers-by. That's when a total stranger named Ian stopped by to ask if she was okay. When her name is Ms. Fernando, explained what was going on as if it was the most natural thing in the world to do, he laid down on the ground close to the little boy, Rudy, and engaged him in quiet conversation. The calming maneuver quickly turned the situation around. After Rudy recovered his composure, Ian walked Rudy and his mom back to their car. Now, this is the stuff that's not going to make MSNBC and Fox. It just isn't. But this is a total stranger who saw the distress of a mother with a severely autistic boy who, how he knew to do this, took it upon himself to calm this child and walk them back to the car. And, the sad part of this whole story is we live in a time where a lot of people would have maced him, if you think about it, because this total stranger, we need to all understand that the world is basically good people. And a lot of the scare and the fear and stuff that we're fed all the time, I'll give you just a very interesting statistic that I've mentioned before, just to bring it up again. If you took your child to a grocery store parking lot, your baby, and you rolled down all the windows in your car, this is absolutely true, and you left them in the car seat by themselves and walked into the store completely unguarded and unlocked, it would take an average of 750,000 years before anybody would snatch your child, statistically. Okay, you need to relax. Okay, there are not a bunch of, when you hear about child snatchers, almost always it's a non-custodial parent. And I'm not making excuses for people that violate court orders, but there's a big difference between dad grabbing the kids, legal or not, and a total pedophile stranger. We all need to take a deep breath. Isn't it a great story? When someone walks up to you and wants to do you a kindness, regardless of who they are or if you know them or their race or their religion or whether they're wearing a turban or whatever it is, assume that they're probably nice. The odds are overwhelming that most people you meet are going to be nice. Really, just out of sheer politeness. Now, yeah, they got their own stuff, but, let people be nice to you is the moral to that story. And good for you, by the way, sir. Ian, good for you. All right. Good people everywhere. Now, on to some happy weed news. Chairman Nadler, who is the chairman of the House committee in charge of the weed legislation, his name is Jerome Nadler, he's from New York, has refiled his federal weed legal. So, little background, the Senate's 50-50. So to get the bill through, they had to rewrite it. To make a long story short, the senators and the Senate have rewritten the bill. Chairman Nadler has now rewritten his version of the bill, and we should be moving towards legalization of pot here pretty quickly. Keep your fingers crossed. Now, back to the DEA. I just had to bring this up because you wonder where they get this shit, okay? I titled this story, Reefer Madness is Alive and Well at the DEA, referring to the movie, maybe you don't know. The boomers know. This silly movie where, marijuana was the gateway drug to heroin and everybody was ripping their clothes off and all that shit. I actually watched that in school as a kid, and they were actually serious about that. I swear to God, that's true. Of course, I was a kid, before electricity. But, you would think that nobody. So check this out. This is a quote from the DEA. Now, they weighed in on there's been an increase in teenagers smoking pot statistically in New Mexico. Now, first of all, I'd like to know how they even take those statistics. Whenever you hear statistics on the news, how do you collect statistics Do you ask teenagers, are you smoking pot? How many of them are going to tell the truth? It's like asking, it's when I hear statistics about how many men and women cheat on their spouses. Tell me who's answering that question honestly. Really, come on. I mean, so we don't really know if there's any increase or decrease. We don't really, because kids aren't going to, come on. Let's get a grip. But let's just pretend it's true. Quote, marijuana, this is what the DEA says, marijuana use in teenagers and young adults is very damaging to the young brain. Various entities, including the National Institute on Drug Abuse, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, the Pediatric Medical Association, and numerous universities and state health departments have all reported stunted brain development and an increase in mental health issues when young people use and misuse marijuana and THC products, especially with high levels of THC. Now, let me tell you what the real statistics tell you. First of all, this is a bunch of conflated nonsense, okay? This is someone repeating stuff. Yes, there are studies that show that if you do the study, basically if you stuff 12 joints in the mouth of a rat, okay, and you overwhelm it with THC, you can kill the rat, okay, and you can stunt its brain. But most of us fall asleep long, and especially kids, long before we get the dangerous. I mean, I personally have smoked too much pot in my life, and you just fall asleep. Sometimes you get a little paranoid, sometimes you get a little nauseous, but you basically fall asleep. No one's ever died of a pot overdose. This is nonsense. This is just, yeah, but then, like, where are the parents? If you did it, let's say you had a kid who was, all of my children smoke weed, all of them, okay, all four. We smoke together, to be honest. But if they were abusing it, I'd say something. I mean, that's the role of being a parent. The government just needs to get out of our lives. Remember number one tenet of the Silver Stoner. You own your own body, even a child. Okay? Everyone owns their own body. Now, parents can exercise control over their children, and that's why at the beginning of the show it says if you're under 21, don't watch this show. I get it. But it's not, if they do, and we both know that they're going to, we all know they're going to smoke a little weed. A little weed's not going to kill anybody, right? You know, I mean, come on. I've been smoking since I was 14. And so far, I don't think I'm crazy. Well, maybe. Anyway, who knows? Probably why I can't remember anything. I don't care. Listen, there's a trade-off in life. There is risk and reward to everything. If you cross the street, you can get hit by a car, but not if you look both ways. That's the problem with regulators and people trying to live our lives for us. You know, they all assume that we don't know how to look both ways before we cross the street. Every stoner I know knows everything about pot. I mean, anyway, especially the kids. Anyway, let's move on. I'm saying anyway a lot today, and we're going to skip that. Is CBD antipsychotic is the next story. And I got this from a website that I follow scientific stories on, Science Direct. It turns out that how do you say that? Cannabidiol? Cannabidiol is CBD's, anyway, CBD is a major, here's what they say. I had to actually translate this. Cannabidiol prevents disruptions in sensory motor gating induced by psychotomimetric drugs for the last 24 hours with probable involvement of epigenetic changes in the ventral striatum, which in ordinary English means, okay, this is just a study that came out, CBD has a major non-psychotic component in the cannabis sativa plant that shows therapeutic potential in several psychiatric disorders, including schizophrenia. In other words, CBD, and we're going to talk a lot about CBD with my guest here in just a minute. CBD is one of those things that we don't know what it's good and what it's bad for. There's a lot out there, and there are tons of, like when you go to the pot shows, there are just tons and tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of people doing CBD because it doesn't require the licensing and the jumping through hoops that opening a dispensary does or a legal grow house. So a lot of people are going the hemp/CBD way because it's the path of least resistance. Or those of us, for example, who have a criminal background that can't, in my state, can't get involved with the industry, this is another path. Just because there's a barrier doesn't mean you can't find a way around it. Or as I like to say, and pardon my French, find a way and fuck them. Anyway, but CBD definitely has major benefits. We're learning more all the time. And as time goes on, we'll learn what are good and what are bad, and I'll keep reporting them to you. But those of you who have a family member or yourself maybe suffer from schizophrenia or taking antipsychotic drugs, and you know how shitty they make you feel, evidently CBD can at least offset some of that and be used as a substitute. Again, don't self-medicate. There's going to be a lot more research and a lot more work done. And do your homework before you, don't listen to what I just said and run out and get CBD thinking and drop your antipsychotic meds. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying do your homework, and we're going to find out more and more there are natural alternatives, I think, to these drugs that every psychotic I've ever known, and I don't like that term, every person I've known with mental illness, particularly, and 999 out of 1,000 schizophrenics are not violent, and people don't understand schizophrenia, but most of them are just wonderful people, and they hate those drugs.
All right.
Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay. Was that you chiming in that you agree with me?
Let's go.
Oh, okay. Move on. You're basically telling me move on.
Move on.
Move on. Well, thank God for tech mastery. Okay. Last story before we get to my guest is Big Candy is angry. Big Candy. You've heard about Big Tobacco? Big Candy is angry. Evidently, there have been lawsuits filed by Wrigley Chewing Gum and the Hershey Company, and the Hershey Companies has shitload of them. They filed suits against a company called Tincture Bell for products that resemble Reese's Peanut Butter Cups, Heath Bars, Almond Joy Bars, and York Peppermint Patties. I think I've eaten them. And Mondelez International has a suit against the company hawking. They're the people that make Sour Patch Kids. Evidently, this company that they're suing is called Ferrara Candy, and they're making a product called Stony Patch Kids. And then there's another company that's making medicated Nerds rope. Now, look, let me give you guys a tip out there in cannabis land. Don't piss off sleeping elephants, okay? Can I just give you guys all the tip? Bad idea, copying these guys. Just walk away. Make your candies completely different. There's so many delicious ways to make. I'm just giving you a little boomer fatherly advice. Don't wake up sleeping elephants. Don't piss off Hershey's chocolate. Make something better, because do you know why Hershey's and all these companies are defending this? Because they're all going to get involved in it. The minute this stuff becomes legal, there's going to be medicated Hershey bars. There's going to be medicated Reese's cups. There's going to be Heath bars are my favorite, by the way. By the way, if you want to really something delicious, go down to your local Dairy Queen and get a Heath bar Blizzard. Holy Christ, that's good. Anyway, to make a long story short, those are all going to be in the future sold at Circle K medicated. I'm telling you, Circle K will become your dispensary as sure as God made little green apples. You think I'm kidding, don't you? When it's nationally legal, do you really think the dispensaries are going to survive it? It's coming. I hope that.
You heard it here.
Look, there will be dispensaries because there will always be that group of stoners who are like fine wine drinkers and will want to go into a dispensary to get the better weed. But then there's going to be those stoners who want to grow their own, which is now how I'm going to transition right now to my guest, Dyron Lindsay. We can start showing Dyron and talk about it. There are those people, and you can probably agree with me, that are going to grow their own weed because they can customize it, make it great. And then there are those people who are living maybe on a tighter budget or whatever, and they're going to be able to buy their weed at Circle K. Right. And once it's nationally legal, and QT, and I don't mean to. I'm not endorsing any one company, but anyway. So here we are, Dyron. So we met.
Yes, sir.
We met at a weed expo. I forget what was it called.
The Earl Cup.
The Earl Cup,
yes.
Which was some kind of grow your own giveaway. Who won that anyway? Who won the Earl? It doesn't matter. Anyway, it doesn't really matter who won the Earl Cup. It's just some silly thing. But it was a what's the word I'm looking for? It was a monster event.
Monster event. 2-day event, 24,000 people.
And
monster event, recreational and medical. And
crammed into a place where I wish they would. They could have picked 100 different venues, but that shithole that they had that place. The parking was that.
That place is the only place that will house all the people that come to the event. We've tried, I've been to, this is the sixth event, 6 years. I've been to each one of the events. Behind the scenes, it's always been clusterfuck of where to park, clusterfuck of people, clusterfuck
it was,
what do you do? And
Tech Mastery was with me, and it was a fast. It was hot.
It is basically something of just a catastrophic people. It's damn near like Coachella for marijuana. Basically, it's a step under Coachella for marijuana here. It's like vendors, exposures, different individual growers.
Because the music wasn't as good.
Right. We have this. The Phoenix Suns DJ was there though, so that was good for us.
Yeah, that was good.
That was nice. He was off for their game, no game for them, so he came out for the event.
Suns aren't having a bad year, but let's not go into local sports because they're all going to, no one cares outside of Phoenix. But they're not having. They're doing better. Just saying.
Right. They are.
The Diamondbacks suck, anyway. Moving right along. Let's start. There are hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of stoners out there,
right,
who want to be you. No, I'm not. Well, first of all, because you're beautiful, but stop. Isn't he just beautiful?
No, he's handsome.
I think he's beautiful. I've often thought if I came back in another life, I'd like to be a black person because you have such nice skin. look at my fucked up skin with all this shit all over. I mean, God loves black people more than white people because we're the ones who get skin cancer. That's all I'm saying. All right. I completely digress. What was I talking about? Oh, we were talking about you. So where was I going with that, Uncle Eric?
Everyone wants to be.
Everyone wants to be a canopreneur.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, a canopreneur.
That's our word, a canopreneur. I'm sure that, and in some states, like the state we live in, if you've run afoul of the law at any time in your life, you're banned for the time being, which is stupid. You're not banned from buying whiskey? You're not banned from brewing your own. Anyway, I digress. But you could go to work for a beer distributor with a criminal background, but you can't go to work for a marijuana distributor. So let me just shut up and you tell your story of how you found the industry, what your background is. Please share, and I'm going to be quiet.
Well, thank you for having me first and foremost.
You're welcome.
My background is growing. It's horticulture, of course. But as far as the cannabis industry, I had a run-in, of course, the right way was the wrong way then, which was unauthorized cultivation of marijuana. So
how many plants were you cultivating?
155.
And at the time that you got caught, was it legal at all? Was it medically
this
legal?
This was 2011. So this was around the Prop 203. It just hit. So I didn't qualify for that due to my amount and quantity. But that was around that time. If you had a little bit, you'd be okay. Smack on the wrist, basically the 203.
And you have to ask yourself, and I know I want to go back to your story, but what's the difference between 1 and 155? It's your property. I don't get it.
It's funny we speak of the DEAs, what they consider to be a larger amount it's just, they think it's gold, it's rich.
But let me ask you a question. You're a horticulturist. Your
Yes.
background is gardening. If you had 155 tomato plants,
Yes.
you just have a shitload of tomatoes. What's the difference? It's a plant. Anyway, I digress. Keep on with your story. You and I are coming from the same place, so we're not going to argue. If it was up to me, and by the way, I think that everyone who has marijuana charges should be expunged. I'm just going to throw that out.
Yeah.
So you should not have a criminal background here once it becomes nationally legal, and hopefully the president, whoever it is, at that time, the current one certainly would, pardon everybody and expunge these records. But anyway, go ahead.
I mean, that's something to look forward to, hopefully. That's where Barracuda Cannabis that's where it kind of made itself come from, basically. So in November, the laws passed here in our state to be able to have recreational along with medicinal. So me, as a gardener, I took that as a chance to teach individuals how to grow this medicinal plant, not just the cannabis plant, not just the flower. The plant is a perennial, so
What do you mean by a perennial? Because I want to pretend that I'm a moron because I am.
It's a flower. It's basically we're smoking a flower. So when the marijuana plant develops, it starts to bud, it has a flower. So it's more or less, you think of it as an artichoke plant. An artichoke plant is in the same category with this perennial. It takes a year to get an artichoke to blossom, to bloom, to get a bulb. That's about the time you look for with a marijuana plant based on certain environments. You look for 6 months out to 9 months, 9 months out to a year, depending on where this plant is at, and it grows and it becomes a nice little bud, thick flower. If you let it continue to stay on the plant and don't harvest it, it rebuds and starts to reblossom, replant, and then it just reseeds itself and continues to go on and on and on. More or less like flowers do. When roses are done, they fall off, they go dormant, they come back out. These flowers that come once a year, they're seasonal. Like a marijuana plant is a seasonal plant. You can't just grow it outdoors or indoors anytime you want unless you manipulate the environment.
I was about to say, you can fool it indoors. That's one of the reasons.
So what we do at Barracuda Cannabis is show individuals how to manipulate more or less bringing the outdoors indoors. Because when a plant is outdoors, it's never dark. Right? There's theoretically some light taking place. There's a sunlight, there's a moonlight. So you have the growers and the brands that have the metal halides and the high-pressure sodium lights. Now, moving forward to 2021 and where we are as a company, we want to be able to teach them how to save money, be cost-efficient. So you look at these high, expensive grow lights and these ridiculous prices, you're trying to manipulate outdoors. So it's one of those things, can I have it bright enough? Can I have the airflow right enough? Can I have the humidity right enough? Can I get the elements? Once you understand your environment, we can teach you how to structure those elements. And once you have an element with an environment, you have somewhat of an ecosystem taking place that you're going to place something inside of that's going to be alive. The plant's alive. So with live organisms, you have an ecosystem, therefore working together with the air, the humidity, the light, creating a false environment.
So with all of those parts with the environment, how much money do I have to? I mean, this is how I think. Mm-hmm. I think, okay, let's say that I wanted to take a portion of my home and do an indoor grow.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and I believe under our current state law, and I have no desire to go back, it's 6 plants I'm allowed to have.
Yes.
So I want to grow 6, and that's a lot of pot. by the way. That 6 plants are going to yield a lot of pot.
Yes.
Walk me through, pretend I know nothing because I almost know nothing. From the beginning, I wake up one morning and I say to myself, I am sick of paying a 16% excise tax, which is what it is in Arizona. And then add to that the sales tax, which makes it 25% to go to the dispensary. And now I'm not recreational, I'm medical, so I only pay the sales tax. But I'm speaking for the average person.
Right.
And I've decided that I'm sick of paying that, but at the same time, I don't want to deal with my old dealer who's still around because they only half-ass legalized it. But that puts me in legal jeopardy because those guys are still out there looking for me.
Right.
So now I want to grow. Walk me through and tell me how much money I'm spending along the way.
In regards to starting to grow, you want to basically you assess what it is you want to grow, whether it's the strains, the plants, all those things matter. So say you have a house and you have one room and your room is only a 9-foot ceiling, you gotta address your environment. So
can you buy? I don't mean to interrupt you, but I see a lot of these
tents.
Thank you.
You can buy a tent. Tents that's an easy setup. That's the typical way to go right now. People buy a tent. You look on your local online platforms, you buy a tent. Once you buy the tent, you have to go with your seed selection. You have to go with what it is you want to grow inside of that tent. All strains will not fit in certain tents. So you might say, I want to grow OG Kush or I want to grow Purple Kush. These strains, more or less, desire more room. So you have to make sure you get a strain that's going to be good in a 4x4 or 5x5. Make sure your environment will hold. And then make sure that the light that you're getting, because all these lights, quote unquote, you have to get a light that is going to be suitable and not too powerful. LEDs now are powerful. They're not as hot, but they're powerful. Yeah. So you have to make sure you understand what you're growing as far as a plant strain, and then understand what the environment. So the tent is a 5x5. You can't get this huge, humongous, crazy light to fit inside this small tent. You're gonna burn your plant. So you have to be educated enough to know what environment, what parts go specifically. It's almost like a blueprint. It's almost specifically designed to do certain things. Your LED light is designed to shine a certain way. The tent is designed to house and host
a certain. How much money are we talking about for one of these tents?
These tents are average on Amazon, $80.
Okay.
It's a cheap tent. You can go extensively.
That doesn't include the lights and all that kind
lights,
of.
No.
So
you go with your tent, your lights. So average right now, the average light, LED light, is going to cost you possibly $100.
Okay.
This is on Amazon.
So now I'm at $160.
$160 for the tent and the light.
So now let's move on to the other things I need.
So you need a fan. Okay. Your average fan, a small fan, $20 fan.
We're just talking about like a desktop fan?
Desktop fan. Because the tent is small. The tent's like this corner. This is like a tent, basically.
This is a stupid question. Is the tent open? The tent's closed, right?
Tent's closed. So you want
where does
airflow.
The fan go?
So in these tents, they're mounted intake and outtake flow holes.
Okay.
So you want to be able to mount your fan in all these intake holes. So the tents are kind of like 1, 2, 3 step processes. You kind of open it up, pop it together, put it together. We have an intake, outtake. You have where you have a charcoal filter. Charcoal filters are used to eliminate the smell.
Do they?
That's what their slogan is. Eliminate
all
smell.
All I know is, I can always spot grow houses.
Yeah.
For two things.
Yeah.
Number one is you go by these shitty buildings, and this neighborhood's full of them that we're in right now, that have like plywood on the windows, but they have state-of-the-art air conditioners on the roof. Or
that is it, yeah.
Or beautiful set. There's one just down the street that's got plywood on the roof. It's a rundown mess on the outside, but it's got brand new dual, and the small little house, dual units, huge units, and a really brand new satellite dish. And I know what's going on. Plus, so that's one way to spot it. The other way is you can smell it.
Right.
And they're trying to suppress it.
Right.
So does that really work? Can you suppress it?
It does. I mean, like one plant, sure. 2 plants, sure. Things like that. Going into these tents only made.
If I walked into my house, and I'm not to interrupt you, is it going to be like that, like it is when you walk into the house of somebody that has cats?
Yes.
It's kind of in the background, but it's not annoying?
Yes.
Okay.
There's no deceiving. You can try to hide it and mask it with the charcoal filters. There's all types of
you make
brands.
a trade-off. It's like if you own a cat, right?
But you're going to, like people that smoke kind of come blind to the smell. If you own a pet, you come blind to that smell. So if you're a growing indoor person, you're always growing things, you're not going to smell it. You know what I mean? The person that comes inside will keenly smell it because they don't live with you. They're not doing it. So it's like you become blind.
Okay, so I got $160 invested in the light in the tent. Now what else do I need?
You have the hardest part out of the way. That's it.
How about the soil?
That comes from us. I'm sorry.
Okay, that comes from you. So let's talk about.
But say you don't get the soil from us. You need a soil. You need a medium. I mean, like I said, there's brands out there.
So basically, you're an expert that teaches people how not to fuck it up.
pretty much.
Right, and how to
Pretty
get
much.
maximum. And before you did this,
You want maximum yield, you want sustainable harvest, you want to make sure you get your money's worth. So if you only put in $160 for what it is, or you say you have a lot of money to expend and say you want a state-of-the-art system, you can go up to $4,000 or $5,000 for these tents. But I'm not going to have you waste your money like that. I'm going to have you go the cheapest way possible and show you how to utilize what it is you have.
Okay, so let's pretend, let's say I'm an average person.
Mm-hmm.
I have a 2-bedroom apartment.
Okay.
Okay. But I'm living alone, and so, or just me and my wife, or me and my girlfriend, or my boyfriend, or whatever it might be, and I have an extra bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Would you recommend a tent, or would you do some? Tell me how you'd recommend I
if
go
you have
from scratch.
If that's a room and you have a room accessible,
I have an extra room,
and you're able to grow in there, and no HOA problems, and it's your own place, I would recommend converting that room into 2 separate rooms, a veg room and a flower room. That way you can have a continuous cycle.
A veg? What'd you say? What
A veg room,
room?
a vegetation side, and also a flowering side.
Okay.
And with a room that size, you're able to build inside of that room 2 separate rooms. So it's enabling you to put one room together that you already have, and be able to do 3 separate things out of that one room.
Now let's say that I'm living like I do in Phoenix,
Mm-hmm.
like we do,
Mm-hmm.
and it's hot as hell now in the summertime.
Mm-hmm.
And but I don't want to use one of my bedrooms. Let's pretend I have a little house and I want to use my garage. I have a 1-car garage or a 2-car garage, and I want to either take half of it and seal it off or whatever. But I got a heat issue. How sensitive is weed to heat?
Absolutely very sensitive. In this heat, it will die. Anything, it is not, I mean, it's
Is that why they grow out in Northern California so heavily? Is that why outdoor growing is so prevalent?
it's not even that.
In that cool climate up
It's
there?
not really the sun or the cool climate. It's the amount above sea level. It's the amount of moisture in the air.
Well, we have we have virtually no moisture.
Right.
I mean,
So
I
moisture
bathe
there.
in lotion.
Right. So the moisture in the air has a lot to do with it. So it's not so much as the temperature, because it gets warm, it gets kind of sticky, but it is cooler there. But also what helps that is the sea level and the air coming off of the water. So here, if you grow outdoors, you have to manipulate it. It has to be indoors, like a greenhouse. It has to be covered. It has to be shaded. You can grow outdoors here in Arizona. It can be possibly done in the sun, just brought out and done. But you have to really treat it as if it's something that you're there on top of. It's really delicate. It's going to be a delicate thing. They're temperamental, very temperamental.
So if I have a garden in my backyard, let's say I have a vegetable garden in my backyard,
Yes.
and I want to, and let's say that I'm growing, and this is something I know a little, because I enjoy gardening. It relaxes me. So let's say that you have a little vegetable garden.
Yes.
And you're already, as we do in Arizona, you've already tented it.
Okay.
You've got covering over it during the summertime to keep the direct sunlight off of it. Can you grow a decent?
Once we're in that phase where we can grow outdoors, that would be opportune to grow outdoors, but making sure you grow in the right solstice. So here in Phoenix, the sun is very dramatic here. So growing up in Arkansas, there's difference with as far as the solstice with the sun. So you have a summer, spring, winter, fall solstice. Here, to grow outdoors,
You have hot and kind of hot.
Right.
Right.
But that sun solstice never changes, though. It still goes to a spring, goes to a summer, goes to a fall. You have to plant during the fall solstice of the sun.
Why is that?
During the fall solstice of the sun, when it goes into the winter solstice, it'll be the coolest stage.
I see.
So the nights will become less warm and more cooler. Still hot, but cooler in the ground. Because the sun solstice
Well, in the
is
wintertime
changing.
here, it's very lovely. I mean, it's
But
68, 70 during
right.
the day and goes down to 35, 40 at night.
And our winter times are very bright because the solstice of the sun is at its peak of that time, but the temperatures of the ground have met. So you have the winter solstice of the sun and you have the temperature of the ground interacting with it itself, making it opportune, a prime growing season.
So for most people, they're better off growing inside is what you're basically telling me.
In this physical state, yes. In Arizona, yes.
What if I lived in St. Louis?
Not even that physical. No, you could grow it there in St. Louis. Out humidity would be different there. You can even grow in Arizona here upstate. There's just snows in places, Flagstaff
Right,
and
yeah.
Pine Top, and I go fishing in Prescott and the Mongolian Rim. It's cold up there.
Yeah.
So if you were able to live out there and plant,
I love the very river up there. One day I'm
yes.
going to tell you my mountain lion story, but that's
Yeah.
another story. Keep
So,
going.
depending on depending on the environment. So if you have the environment to where you don't have to manipulate those temperatures and manipulate that ecosystem that you're trying to get, it'd be ideal. But also, you could not plant in a cold season into the winter solstice. You have to plant in the spring solstice of the sun, meaning you have to plant in the warmest side of the sun to warm the ground.
So if you're planting the winter solstice, you're harvesting in August. Is that correct? 9 months later.
Correct.
Okay. And so you're weed free, and so you don't have any weed during. So there's no way to stagger these plants so you have a year-round production, or no?
The only way is to do multiple plants and do sustainable harvesting. So you have one in transition. So you have one that you're going to flower. It's going to be your harvesting one, and you're going to have one next to that. They're going to be simultaneously in stages. So you're never going to have just, this is all I've done. This is it for me. There will always be plants able to be used as CBD to juice from. There will also be plants used that you're trimming them down to make your butter with, to make your oils with, to make your edibles with. So there's not just a plant that you're going to take and just harvest and kill everything. You will have plants in transition to use for different stages.
That brought me to a very interesting, you said something just now that just put a question in my head. CBD to juice from. So I'm looking at the whole plant. Mm-hmm. Let's say that I want to just get the CBD and not the THC. Is there a way to do that at home?
Growing your plant, that's the best way to do it at home. Is you grow your plant at home, you have a plant, and it's indoors or wherever you are geographically, and if it's outdoors or indoors. If you're outdoors, hats off to you, you have more of a plant to use. Indoors, you only can do as big as your indoor environment goes. But basically, you're going to be able to go to that plant 3 times a day and do, quote unquote, 3 to 5 leaves. You're going to take those 3 to 5 leaves. You're going to be able to juice those leaves in your kale and your apple slices and your grapes.
So the CBD is coming from the leaves, not from the bud.
It's coming from the leaves.
Oh, it's a whole different part of it. That was the part.
See,
I'm really ignorant about this.
It's in the plant too. It's in the flower too. It's in the leaf. It's in the plant. It's in the stalk. It's the plant itself.
Is there any THC in the leaves? I've never tried to smoke the leaves. I've always, we throw those away.
It's minimal amounts of it. Minimal amounts. But as the plant harvests and continues to, quote unquote, not harvest, but continues to finish budding, and it's starting to develop, and it's already developed out, all the trim that you use, that you, quote unquote, is trimming away and throwing away, it's full of active THC at that particular point because the flower is ready. So there are triclones you have to look at. There are different things you look at to let you know when the flower is ready.
So what do you do with that?
That is what you use for your, quote unquote, for your edibles and your butter, right? But just THC in there. Before you get to that point, if you have just a beautiful, healthy green plant with no flowers, just foliage, that is pure medicine at the highest state of CBD because it is no THC and it's no flowers there. It's just all leaves, all medicine there. If you were to break one of those leaves and twist it, you can smell how strong it is. And sometimes the leaves smell stronger than the actual flower. So it's full of I look at it as be a concentrated version of the CBD. So that's why it's so important to utilize fresh. Like there's new ways now to do the CBD, but we encourage taking 3 to 5 leaves and juicing those leaves.
Now, how do you juice the leaves? Explain that to me.
Raw, just like your kale, just like your lettuce. You put a cup of kale, a cup of your marijuana leaves in there. You're going to do a half cup of apple slices, your orange juice, a little lemon.
You're just going to put them in your smoothie.
Smoothie in the morning, and you're going to juice it. If you have inflammation, you're going to be doing this 3 times a day. If you're dealing with different types of muscle spasms, back pains, chronic illnesses, the same topicals and the same sublingual ointments you go buy at the dispensaries that have CBDs and then that you're using for these elements, you're getting them, but you're getting them kind of watered down.
So explain that. You're getting them, but you're getting them watered down. So you're saying that the commercial producers are diluting them? Is that what you're saying?
Not so much diluting, but you have to think about the amount of volume, the amount of production, the amount of consistency, and the amount of potency. So therefore, if someone says this has 0.1% alcohol, there is actually 0.55% alcohol, but there's a certain number you put there. So when you say that you have this amount of CBD, it has been processed through. It has been something that's been added to it. It has a flavor added to it. It has some sugar added to it. You have a stabilizer added to it. You have a preservative added to it. Then you bake it. So how much of it are you actually getting? I don't know. I'm not a chemist. I don't know. I don't know. I can't argue with the dispensary and say, is this truly what I'm getting? So instead of arguing with someone statistically, so my background outside of horticulture is quality assurance. So everything is microbiology enhanced. It is always a spec. There's always going to be something that's going to be prominent no matter what. Once you take something and you induce it or you de-induce it, you take or add from it, you lessen the potency, period. So if something in the growing state is like CBD in a plant, a marijuana plant, and it's growing and you take it and you harvest it fresh, just like a tomato plant, you go and pick a fresh tomato and you take a bite out of that tomato. It hadn't been preserved, hadn't been gassed, hadn't been still on the shelf. It's going to taste so fresh. You take those leaves, you juice those leaves, you're going to get such a deliverance of fresh cannabinoids to each of these receptors in your body that needs it.
So you're going to get a better result.
You're going to get a better result and a better use. So when you eat something that has CBDs in it, you got to go through the sugar, you got to go through this, you got to go through that. If you drink something with CBD, you got to go through this, you got to go through that. You got to filter it out, your liver, your kidneys, your blood, your muscles. When you're dealing with a direct derivative of something, your body processes that direct derivative faster, more
Plus
prominent.
any micronutrients that are in the leaf that you're not even aware of, right?
The micronutrients are what you're missing from, I think, certain CBD products because there's no way it could be there.
This is always the discussion between natural products and lab products.
Yes.
It's like if I want to go buy 1 a day silver for older people, that is a lab-produced vitamin.
Yes.
There are plenty of doctors who will look me right in the eye and tell me that that's just as good. Your body doesn't know the difference between a molecule.
Right.
On the other hand,
right.
I can find another doctor with an MD. I'll use a name, Andy Weil in Tucson. I'll just use that because he's famous.
Right.
But there are thousands of doctors who subscribe to the holistic approach to medicine who will say, no. When you're using these kind of things, you want the whole, vitamin's the wrong word, the whole plant, you want it natural because there's so many things we don't even know what they are yet.
Right. It's like when you say something that's green and you boil it and the water turns green. So you're taking out the chlorophyll. They have chlorophyll pills that you
I'll be honest with you. I like drinking stuff like that as tea. I mean, I can make tea out of these leaves too, can't I?
Absolutely.
So so then I'm drinking the chlorophyll, so it doesn't matter.
But you're drinking it and you're getting a different release. So the temperature is different. You're getting a different feel of what is you're sipping. So it more or less maybe a tea for anxiety. It may be for melatonin release and for sleeping when you go to sleep. So it may be different strains, quote unquote, that you look for as a grower, and you say, you know what, I smoked a lot, I don't want to smoke anymore, my lungs are bad, but I know I have this insomnia, I can't really sleep that much, what's good for sleeping, So it's a CBD, but what actual CBD is it? Is it a certain strain, or is it just CBD period? So
that's a good question.
So if it's just a CBD, non-strain dominant specific thing, you just want the CBD medicinal aspect, you would get a nice indica plant that's prominent and heavy in CBD aspect, low in THC, because you're not looking for the psychoactive fat, you're looking for the medicinal aspect, and you would take that, grow that plant, and you're going to be juicing those plants, you're going to be getting those raw leaves and getting a very high percentage of your cannabinoids.
What would happen if you juiced the flower? Would you get high from the drink? I'm not. By the way, that is a terrible waste of good flower, and not in a million years am I suggesting this. I'm just curious that
if processed properly, there is a psychoactive element there that takes place. And depending on the process of the flower, it can be non-psychoactive. It can just be still a CBD, because you can take a plant that is just a CBD plant, and you can do a process to just that flower in those leaves, and it all just do CBD and not releasing any of the THC active.
Let's back up to the very beginning. Okay, I've hired. Now the reason I hire you is because, and I think I would be like the ideal client. I don't pretend to know what I don't know, and I'm the same guy. I don't enjoy, for example, there are things around my house I can fix because they're easy.
Right.
Okay, like changing out the cartridge in a dripping sink or something like that.
Right.
But there are a lot of things that I don't screw with, including electricity of any kind. And I know plenty of handy people, and I don't build shit because if I build it, it's going to turn out crappy. I mean, and I'm going to end up building it twice. It's the same reason I don't work on my own car. Okay, I would rather pay the mechanic to do it. Do I hire? There are do-it-yourself kits that come with these tents that walk you through it, but you're going to fuck it up, right? Is it basically what do you charge? What is your value? Why would I hire you? I guess I'm just pitch me. Okay, I'm at home, and I've decided I'm going to grow my own because I'm sick of paying these excise taxes, and I want to be my own guy. Right. Plus, I want the CBD. I want the natural. I want to be able to. I want to do all those things. Right. But I look at all this and I go, I don't want to try to learn this. So I look up and I see Barracuda Cannabis.
Yes.
You're a master grower. You know what you're doing. I call you up. Tell me what you're going to tell me. You're
going to save some money, first of all, and that's the whole point. Teaching you how to bring the outdoors indoors, teaching you how to grow, teaching you to learn the environment. So with that process, we have a table of contents, is a grower's manual. So we supply you with information with a 12-step process. It's 12 steps is more or less 12 months of what it takes. It doesn't take 12 months. You may finish in 10 months. You may finish in 11 months. It depends on what you want to do for yourself. We access the seed selection. Where do I
get my seeds? Now that's another thing.
That's our first thing. So our seed selection is the first thing we talk about. So if you can get them from us directly, we don't make quote unquote any seeds. We have a different variety of strains we are growing amongst ourselves right now. You can pick one of those, or you can outsource to one of the vendors we do deal with and get a seed from them.
Is it legal to transport seeds across state lines? In other words,
no.
So, well, that shut me the fuck up. I mean, Well, I guess that limits. So I got to buy, no matter what state I'm in, I've got to buy my seeds in the state that I'm in.
Yes.
Isn't that stupid?
You have to
Really?
be
I mean,
very,
are California and Arizona seeds incompatible? Anyway.
Right.
Okay.
But we so I'm going to be able to show you, as Barracuda Academy, I'm going to teach you how to not kill this plant, to grow this plant, how to enjoy what it is you're doing, how to know this plant's alive. Once you know the plant's alive, you're going to be able to take care of it. Not the plant and the money and saving money. If you're thinking about saving money now,
how much am I paying you for this service?
$400 is what we charge.
Well, that seems reasonable.
The reason we charge $400 for this, it's just really simple. If you go to any dispensary in the state of Arizona right now and buy an ounce of marijuana, premium, low shelf, top shelf, bottom shelf, special shelf, it's going to cost you more than that.
Yeah.
Okay, you're going to go home, you're going to de-seed it, you're going to de-stem it, you're going to grind it, and you're going to have less than you pay for an ounce. You're going to have about 24 grams of flour.
Right. That's correct.
And you're going to be very upset when you smoke it, it doesn't taste, it doesn't get that oomph. And you're going to say, man, I could do better than this. I just don't know how to do it. That's where we come to play. We teach you how to learn the environment. If you can grow your typical house plant, then you can grow your typical marijuana plant. And if you don't think you can, we're going to be there with you every step of the way. You're going to call us 24 hours a day.
You took the question out of my mouth. Can I pick up the phone and say I'm stuck here?
Now you pick us. We have 24-hour of calling. We have on-site help. We come with you. We go to the location. All you as a person need is your environment and your light. Once you have your environment, your light, and you go through the selection and say whatever seed or strain you want, we provide you with the mediums. We do a living soil. We make in-house. I've been there like 15 years. I do a bunch of different microorganisms we mix together. Makes one living vessel. It's like a miniature ecosystem. Once you put your plant or your seed in that ecosystem based on your light and your environment, the natural physics of life take place. Things start to happen. Things come alive that need this.
Do you have to fertilize? I know you have this living soil, but do you need to add fertilizer?
So we have a stabilizer and a conditioner that we do supply you with. We supply you with all the nutrients that you need, but it's a stabilizer and a conditioner, and these are only added as needed. So we try to make our super soil just as complex as possible, that you don't need to do anything but just almost add water. Now, say that you have it and you're growing it and something goes wrong. In a leaf, say you have to work and you work a double and the light didn't come on, or something happens with your plant and you're worried about the plant, you let us know. If the plant does not thrive and survive, we will replace that strain and we'll start over, and that's free of charge. We're going to make sure we teach you how to do this and make sure you walk through all the mistakes. So we just need the individual client to let us know, not day of, but while things are happening, so we can resolve the issue. So in life, there's no resolution for a problem. There's only a resolve. There's plenty of resolutions, but only the resolve works. So we know what's happening. I'm not an expert to say, well, I know that this is that, and just take me to court on it. But just pure background and horticultural experience that I have dealing with plant life, whether it's vegetables and flowers that I have from our clients already, this plant to me is no different than an artichoke. It's no different than a tomato plant. It's no different than watermelons, cantaloupes, zucchinis, and squash. They all have the same, if not almost identical DNA makeup of how they grow and the way they grow. So if you teach a person, if I'm able to teach you to understand that this plant's alive and what it needs, you're able to grow it. Once you start to see the plant can become your size and you can advantage and use to make butter, to make oils, to make topicals. And once you see you have flour, you can harvest it. We show you how to cure it. We show you how to harvest it. We show you when to harvest. We show you how to prune. So the pruning is a part of what you're able to use and reuse yourself. We show you how to keep this plant alive the entire time, whether it's for 9 months or whether it's a year. Whether you don't want to ever grow the bud, maybe you as a person just want to use CBD for the rest of the time, and that's why you want to grow this plant. You never want this plant to flower. We'll keep that plant alive, and we will have that plant, and you will be able to use that plant.
So talk to me a little bit, and this is the last question I'm going to ask before we switch off our live show and go to our Too High for YouTube, because I have questions I want to ask, but I just, you got to be careful. Mm-hmm. We're on every social media channel, but we're also on YouTube. And we got to be very careful about demonetization. So I just want to be careful about this. But indica sativa.
Yes, sir.
Okay. In Europe, I ask this of everybody really that comes on. Do you see an enormous difference between the benefits of indica or sativa plant?
No.
That's what everybody says. So why does everyone?
Because, this is what I think. I think as a grower standpoint, there's one that grows short and stubby. There's one that grows tall and lanky. That's your sativa, that's your indica. When you travel abroad, I like to travel a lot. When you travel abroad, you realize that these plants The sesamia, these plants themselves have been around a very long time. There is no such thing as an indica or a sativa or this or that. It is just the plant itself. Some of these plants enjoy budding at a nice, short, thick, healthy stage, and some of these plants enjoy the sun, they enjoy the atmosphere, they enjoy the air and the oxygen up here. The oxygen is different down there. Some of these plants are happy down there. So I don't really think it's so much as, it's like the coffee and like different things you drink. Like a will is always going to be a will, right? And a shoe is always going to be a shoe. You would never see a wheel rolling. You would never see a wheel not rolling. If you show me a wheel that's not rolling, I would be okay. I get it. Show me a shoe that's not form fitting.
Right, a shoe that doesn't walk. I mean, so let me ask you. So when you get together with a customer, and I write you, this is so old fashioned. I don't write you much. I Venmo you my $400. See,
that's too new, right there.
That's such a fucking boomer thing. We have another partner who shall go nameless, who until like 2 weeks ago didn't know what Venmo and Zelle was. But that's neither. I mean, anyway.
Right.
So I Venmo or Zelle or something or PayPal you $400. Do you suggest indica sativa based upon my growing environment, where I am, No,
we base it on you, yourself.
Okay.
You know, I have a blood disorder, so I take blood thinners and I take antibiotics twice a day, so I have things I have to watch out for. So if you have high cholesterol, if you have inflammation issues.
Are you suffering sickle cell?
Yeah. So
is that as painful as I hear?
Yeah, absolutely. It is no different than waking up, say you hit by a car every day. So this is
I hear it's unbelievably painful.
This is 2021, right? So going on 2 years ago, in January, my blood started to make me sick. So my blood started to clot. So I got diagnosed with a DVT, so I had blood clots. So added to that pain is that. So a lot of the medication, they want it to be like, pain medicine. So I don't take any of those.
Are you taking blood thinners?
I take blood thinners. I take Eliquis. That is
okay. That has the least bump into things.
They got to say the least. No, it has the most bump into things and bleed out. It's sad to say, but this one per se is not like the warfarin or the Coumadin because I didn't have a heart. I didn't have any heart surgery.
I have a friend who's had a stroke, but they have them on Eliquis too.
So from my understanding, it's because they don't know why my blood made me sick one day. So for some reason, my blood just turned on me and started to clot. Now the sickle cell is already clotting, it's already thick, but I guess it just overextended itself, got too thick. So yeah.
So what does CBD and or THC do for you?
Inflammation, muscle spasms. I take one medicine called Roboxin, but it's basically a non-psychoactive, non-steroidal drug that basically just blocks the receptors that lets me know that I'm not having a spasm, but I still feel it. No pain, but it's still there. So the CBD aspect is more or less for me with muscle spasms and hair, like getting up in the morning just to start moving is a lot for me.
Okay. We're gonna stop it here. Wait, we could keep going, but Tech Master E just signaled to me we're running long on the basic interview, so I'm going to go ahead, guys. Here's the bottom line. We're going to put for those of you living in Arizona, if you're out of Arizona, of course you cannot do business across state lines, and we don't want to just take the information and find someone equivalent to Dyron where you live. And there are entrepreneurs, or if you're thinking about doing, and you know a lot about growing, this is a path for you to pursue. At the very same time, if you're living in Arizona, we're going to put the link to Barracuda Cannabis. And if you're in Arizona and you're like me, and again, we do not have a reciprocal arrangement. He's not paying me, I'm not paying him. This is just good advice from one stoner to another. You want to check it out. He knows more. He's got a whole manual. He's forgotten more than I'm going to ever know, and that's really what you want in an expert. And so check it out. Thank you very, very much for joining me today. And I want to close on this thought. Very few things that are worrying you are going to kill you. So relax. Take a hit. Chill out. Until the next time I see you, be cool. This is Uncle Herb. Peace out.
You're listening to the Silver Stoner Show.